So just under 2 weeks to go now until my photo shoot, and that's week 12 boxed off. I can't believe how much time has flew recently. I'm not complaining, like, you want it to fly, especially when you're in fat loss, but 12 weeks has been boxed off. So what I thought I'd go through today is the training plan that I've used over the past 12 weeks to help me get into this condition that I'm in now. I'll explain the reasoning behind the choices I've made, why it's helped me get shredded, and why it's helped me retain all my muscle mass as well, whilst keeping fatigue levels to a minimum. What I'll start by saying is that there is a million different ways you can structure your training for great results. There is no perfect training split, despite what anyone tells you online. They all work if they're executed in the right way. Now, I'm not going to go into all the pros and cons of different training splits and what might work best for you. That's another video for another day. But when it does come to designing training splits, the main things I like to consider is what body parts you want to focus on the most, what body parts do you want to bring up, how much time do you have, how many times can you train a week? How much time do you have to train in each session? How many days can you get to the gym? What days do you train on? Do you train in the morning when it's quiet? Do you train in the evening when it's busy? How do we work that in around all the equipment that you've got available to you? Is there any injuries we need to consider? Is there any imbalances or lagging body parts that we need to consider as well? And most importantly, during fat loss, in my opinion, what training volume can you actually get the most out of whilst being able to recover well from it and maximise progress whilst you're in a deficit? So this is my training split and how everything's set up now. 4 days a week, torso and limb split. For anyone who doesn't know what that is, basically the torso days are chest, shoulders and back, and then the limbs days are just legs and arms, okay? So 4 days a week. I usually train torso 1 on a Tuesday, limbs 1 on a Wednesday, and I play 90 minutes paddle on a Thursday for my cardio. Yes, I'm one of those paddle divvies. Let's get that out there now. Torso 2 on a Friday, and then rest day Saturday, and then limbs 2 on Sunday, plus 30 minutes of cardio. That's my routine in an ideal week. Now, I'm a big fan of setting routines for yourself because I think it just standardises recovery a lot more, and it standardises how fresh you are for each session, basically. And the reason that's important on the torso and limb split is because you're hitting legs twice a week. So 1 day of legs is hard enough as it is, as we well know. Some people watching this may be suspect of skipping a leg day in there, if we're being honest with ourselves. But 2 leg days just requires a whole lot more demand on recovery. So you want to just space those out as much as you can. That's why I'm hitting them Wednesday, that's why I'm hitting them Sunday. That's why I'm having a rest day before I then hit legs again on Sunday, in an ideal world on a Saturday. So the devil is in the detail there from a recovery standpoint as it relates to your routine and making sure things don't interfere with each other, which they won't anyway on this split, and that is the good thing about it. You can be flexible with this split. But the reason I've chose this split is because I have been doing it since probably like July of last year for most of my building phase, and it's not something I've ever ran properly before, to be honest, but I've tried it and I've seen amazing progress on it, so I've just stuck with it. The reason I think it works so well for me is because you don't actually need a lot of volume on it to make great progress, because you've got so much frequency in every muscle group. You're hitting everything at least twice a week. You're hitting legs twice a week. But because you're hitting legs twice a week, you don't actually have to put loads and loads of volume into your legs like you would on 1 leg day. I also really want to focus on my arms and legs as like lagging body parts. Not to say that my arms were lagging anyway, but who doesn't want bigger arms? I did want to focus on them a little bit more. I want to focus on growing my quads a bit more, and there's still work to be done there in the next builder phase. That is probably going to still be a focus, and it will take a long time to get my quads to where I want them to be. But ultimately, when I can hit legs twice a week, you're doubling the progress essentially from hitting them once a week. I don't feel like you can make any real major progress with the size of your legs just training them once a week. I feel, in my opinion, it's better just hit them twice a week, and this is the perfect split for it. Also, what you can do is, if you are looking to bring up your arms as a priority, then this is obviously a really good option, because you can hit arms separately from upper body, and you can actually even put them in at the start of your limb sessions. So when you put those exercises in at the start, that's when you're the most fresh, that's when you can bring the most intensity to your lifts. So that's when you can generate the most mechanical tension, which is the main driver of muscle growth. You can lift as much load as possible with the most accurate form possible. That is when you are at your strongest at the start of the session. That's what I would recommend. If you're someone who wants to bring up your legs and arms, this split is perfect for you. So for anyone who's quite tall and quite long limbed, that's not me, by the way. I'm 5'9", maybe 5'10" on a good day when I'm being kind to myself. But if you're someone over 6 foot and you've got long limbs and you want to fill out your physique in those limbs, this is the perfect split for you. It really, really is. Hitting legs twice a week, hitting arms at the start of your leg days twice a week, is going to make a huge difference to your progress, in my opinion, compared to hitting them at the end of push or hitting them at the end of pull. So yeah, I've been really enjoying this split. I've seen great progress on it. So if you've been enjoying it, that's the main thing. You stick with it. That's a very simple reason just to pick a training split. Pick what you enjoy doing more than anything. Obviously, the devil in the detail matters around what areas you want to focus on, but ultimately, if you don't enjoy your split, then don't do it and change it to something else. Just going into this in a little bit more detail. Upper 1, which I've just changed to torso 1. Upper 2, which I've just changed to torso 2. Just so no one gets confused. So upper 1 is going to consist of incline prime press, machine lateral raise, cable fly press, single arm seated row, lat pull down, wide row machine. Nice and simple. 2 sets of failure on all of those. This is my shorter session on a Tuesday because I'm quite busy on a Tuesday. I do loads of check-ins, do loads of work. I want to get in and out the gym in around 45-50 minutes. So this is ideal for me to just get in and out really quick, get the stimulus I want to my chest, shoulders and back, and then leave quickly. So this day is all about efficiency for me, and this is where you just need to tailor your days and your sessions around the amount of time you do have on certain days, what might be busier than others. Wednesday is limbs 1, dual pulley tricep extension, single arm preacher curl, adductors, leg extension, calf raise, prone curl, pendulum squat at the end. Friday is torso 2, incline dumbbell bench press, single arm seated row, dumbbell lateral raise, chest dips, wide row machine, cable lateral raise, hammer lat pull down, single arm. Limbs 2, start off with arms again. Tricep rope extension, I do that on a single arm. Cable curls in the length and range, or otherwise known as biasing curls, face away curls. Single leg machine calf raise, because I've got a bit of an imbalance in my calf that I'm trying to iron out at the moment. My right calf is bigger than my left. So when you do have a bit of an imbalance like that, it's always better to start on the imbalanced side first, because normally that is going to be weaker. So there's no point in actually starting on the stronger side, because you're always going to be able to do more. If you want a lagging body part to catch up, start with the weaker side first, see what that can do, and then just match it to the stronger side until that does then catch up in strength. Leg extension again, doubling up on that, hitting that twice a week. Seated leg curl, GHD, I do this on a cable machine, which is a really good machine in the gym I go to. And then finishing off with split squats. This is the session I'm doing today. So immediately, what might shock you about this training split when you look at the amount of sets I'm doing per exercise is that there's barely any sets there. There's only 2 sets on most of my exercises. Even things like the pendulum squat and the split squat on my other limb session, I've only got 1 working set. The only sets that I've got as 3 working sets are my arm exercises. So why is that? So when I go back to the point I made earlier around why is this helping me get shredded? Why does this help me retain muscle? The reasoning behind this lower volume approach is because 1, I know this works for me. 2, I know I can recover from this volume. Most of my muscle groups here, I'm hitting between 6 to 8 working sets per week. That might not seem like a lot, but for me and how well I know my body and what it can recover from, that is enough volume for me to retain muscle and maximise progress in fat loss. This is where you've got to come away from the idea that more work equals better results, because that's not always the case in fat loss. We need to think beyond just being more active in fat loss, especially when it comes to maximising muscle growth and maximising muscle retention as well when you're aiming to get shredded. Does your training play a factor in fat loss? Yes, of course it does. But is it a major factor compared to nutrition and your lifestyle? No. Your nutrition and lifestyle, in my opinion, is just so much more important as a main determinant of how shredded you get. The way you should be thinking about training is, this is what's going to determine how much muscle mass I have at the end of fat loss. Nutrition and your lifestyle is then going to determine how lean you are at the end of fat loss. So that's where they all complement each other. Now, from a trainer perspective, yes, obviously the more active you are, the more calories you're going to burn. But we're thinking beyond that in the context of physique development. What can tend to happen is, if you program yourself 5 sessions a week and you're doing 3-4 sets on a lot of exercises, eventually as you're going through fat loss, you're not going to have the energy, you're not going to have the recovery capabilities to be able to keep up with those numbers that you set for yourself from a strength perspective, and you're only going to end up regressing over time, potentially. But this is where you just need to pay attention closely to what you can actually recover from. So this amount of volume I've set for myself, where most of my muscle groups are being worked at around 6 to 8 sets per week, I know I can maintain my strength numbers at that volume. I know I can recover really well from that and go into each session as fresh as possible, even whilst I'm in a deficit. And because I can then retain all my strength numbers with the amount of working sets that I've allocated, that's going to give muscle a reason to stick around, and that's going to help me retain muscle as I'm getting shredded and as food's getting lower, as energy levels are starting to dip. And that's what's most important towards the back end of your fat loss phase when you are near shredded. Now, I can have the perfect training splits in place and the perfect plan in place on paper that works perfectly for me, But what's going to matter so much more is how I'm executing that program in the gym. And this is what you've really got to think about most. So for this lower volume approach to work, and for me to get the most amount of stimulus possible, to retain the most muscle and build the most muscle I can during fat loss, I need to make sure I'm sending every single set to failure each and every week to hit the best strength numbers I can with the most accurate form possible. If I get this right, this is going to give muscle a reason to stick around. When right now, after 12 weeks of fat loss, I'm probably at my most depleted in the prep so far. I've woke up today, new low on the scales. I'm really tired. I'm not motivated to train hard today. I'd be lying to you if I said I was looking forward to doing split squats later. I'm not. But this is just what's necessary at this stage. So as much as training volume does matter, there also has to be an element of you've got to suck it up, stop being a bitch, and still turn up and train hard even when you don't feel like it. The major difference between those who look skinny at the end of fat loss versus those who look like they've got some muscle mass at the end of fat loss is up here mentally. Those who end up looking skinny will mentally lose that battle because of how tired and fucked they feel at times, and they can't bring that same level of intensity consistently. Those who retain all their muscle and even build muscle will bring the same level of intensity each and every week consistently, regardless of how they feel. So I've just finished that session then, and I managed to retain all my numbers, which is great at this stage, under 2 weeks out. That's a bonus at this stage, whilst maintaining accurate form and training to failure. So not going to lie to you, I could not be arsed doing that session today, but I had to just force myself in and get it done because energy levels are low now, fatigue has crept up quite high now at the back end of fat loss. And this is normal at this stage when you're feeling your most depleted under 2 weeks out. You've got to expect this, and you've got to just get through it. You've got to just turn up, you've got to still bring that intensity, which is what I just had to force myself through today. So on the plus side though, all my numbers were maintained, didn't regress at all. You can safely assume that you're retaining muscle whilst you're getting shredded, like I always say, if that happens. So really happy with that. But one thing you must be doing on this lower volume approach is making sure you are actually training to failure accurately. So I would encourage you to record your sets and look back at your sets to make sure there's no reps being left in the tank, because otherwise you're leaving gains on the table and you're not training hard enough and you're not giving muscle a reason to stick around. This is something I always encourage clients to do, and they send me over form videos all the time, and most of the time I always see that there's more reps there. At least in the initial stages when I first start to analyse anyone's form, I'll always notice there's more reps to give, and you don't realise there is in the moment but do not pay attention to how much it's burning in your muscle. Pay attention more to your rep speed. Is it involuntarily slowing down towards the end of your set? Rewind and go and watch all those previous sets that I just did there. You'll see at the end, those final reps are taking a lot longer to get up despite me contracting as hard as possible. So I know I'm getting the stimulus that I need, and I'm training to failure with accurate form as well, because everything else is standardized. Tempo, range, execution, that's all standardized whilst I'm going to failure. So I'll leave you with that, but make sure you subscribe. And if you want my free video and free guide on how to get shredded, make sure you click the link in the description below.